Hi guys, Luton here, and we've got some changes coming in. We've got some vehicle changes, and it's basically focused around the helicopters. Now, the changes that they've made are not as extensive as they could be. Yeah, a lot of the changes are small tweaks as regard to kind of weapon functionality and damage. Now, this still kind of avoids one of the major problems, which is the fact that the attack helicopters are still far slower than the scout helicopters, meaning that they can just be outmaneuvered very, very often. Not to mention the fact that the scout helicopter still has the capability to carry engineers repairing and firing multiple AA missiles from them independently from both sides in both directions with a 180 degree arc either side of the helicopter, plus the AA missiles that the scout helicopter has as well, making it basically an unstoppable killing machine. I actually raised this issue with some DICE devs a little while ago, and I highlighted the fact that this was a major issue. It was a problem, and I said, look, not wanting to be funny, I've had many rounds, and we've seen this on gameplay before, where I have destroyed the enemy when in the scout helicopter because of the support that's going on there. But it doesn't alter the fact that, it can be fun if you're there, but it sucks to be on the receiving end, and you can really do everything you can. Now, of course, if you've got a well-placed RPG hit or whatever, it's not impossible to take them down, but I still feel like it's much more difficult than it should be. And I think there's some changes that can be made there in terms of defending that helicopter. But anyway, let's look at what the changes are. Okay, so they brought in 7 changes for the helicopter and 4 for tank. I'm not going to run through them all, I'm just going to pick out the major ones. The first one is to do with missile carrying amount for the mobile anti-aircraft vehicles to help with that. It's not a big change. You can read through these yourself, I'll put the link below. The second is reducing the velocity of the MAA's default 20mm cannon from 1200 millisecond to 800 millisecond to match the 30mm, and they say this reduction reduces the distance projectiles will travel and should prevent situations where the MAA could engage enemy vehicles. So again, kind of a nice change, but not massively different there. This one is quite a big one. 3. Reduce the physical impact of all anti-aircraft missiles to prevent helicopters from flipping uncontrollably when hit. The damage values have not been changed. I always thought that the fact that the missiles hit and turned them over was a good thing. I didn't really have any issue with that. I didn't really understand, I always thought that worked really well. It makes sense, if you're going to be taking a hit with a bloody missile, it makes sense that it would get thrown out of the way. So I'm not sure if I really like that one. In fact, it might again, that might help to improve the survivability of the scout heli, so I'm not so sure if I'm on board with that one. Reduce the cone in which active radar missiles search for targets, making them require a high level of skill in predicting where a target will when the missile be fired. The missiles were previously too easy to aim at long range, making them a guaranteed hit and a clear advantage over the other missile types. Again, I think that's a necessary change. I think that will make a difference to how those kind of aerial combats play out. So it'll be interesting to see, though, kind of realistically in game how much of an overall difference that makes. I think it's quite a small change for a small kind of loadout, and I don't think it's going to have a devastating impact in terms of how things play out. 5. Increase the direct damage done by the attack helicopter's gunner cannon. The gunner cannon will better be able to assist the pilot in taking down vehicle targets with this change. It is actually a really good thing because the gunner cannon for the attack helicopter has been ridiculously weak, and maybe that will actually have some impact in terms of the attack helicopter being able to take out scouts, but it remains to be seen. We'll see how that plays out, but we've seen before, attack helicopters in the sky having combat, and the gunner almost seems to be redundant. They seem to be so weak against other air vehicles, so that would be a really nice one if they bring that in and it actually works out. Increase the direct damage of Zuni rockets for attack helicopters. Again, nice little tweak there. The rate of fire for these rockets combined with their smaller magazine made them a poor choice over other rocket types, so nice little change. Reduce splash damage and maximum splash damage for the scout helicopter's 25mm cannons. This is a good change because the 25mm cannons were pretty much the default go-to. There was no reason to take anything else, so again that will kind of help balance that back and maybe give people some different choices when they're firing from air to ground. Then we come into the tanks, reduce the intelligence of the MBT law missiles. These required the player to aim the missile closer to target before the smart projectile activates. Additionally, it says the MBT law reloads slightly slower. This keeps the MBT law in a role of it's an easy to use fire and forget weapon available to all engineers. So again, a little tweak. You do see the law sometimes being favoured too much, so again maybe that make people have some different choices there. Fixed an issue where activate protection and the MPAPS did not properly stop 12G frag rounds. That's kind of funny actually, but again, how often do you realistically see that being used? Not particularly. 3, reduce the range where the M2 slam will do max damage to vehicles from 6 to 3, so that you now have to be more intelligent the way that you place the M2 slams. Again, this will just kind of help stop people spamming so much. They can still do it, they just need to think a little bit more about how they're positioning those. So again, maybe you won't see too much, but it will just stop so much of that spam there with the slams. And finally, reduce the damage that the staff shell does to all targets by 25%. This should balance the ease of use of the staff shell with its damage potential. So that's quite a good change as well. But again, whether that will kind of satisfy everybody, we need to see realistically how much of an impact that staff shell change is going to make. So some nice tweaks there, guys. But what do you think? Did they really address the major issues that we're having there? I feel like most of these were very constructive issues, but whether they addressed the longer ongoing problems that we have with some of the vehicles, I don't know. And I think there's definitely going to be the question mark from some of you guys of, it's all very well that they're fixing these tweaks, but are they addressing the major issues that people are having? Again, from some of my polls on you guys, I think the answer would be perhaps no there, but they've got to carry on doing the things that they have to do. There's departments that are involved in tweaking and balancing that are not involved in other issues, so those guys are going to be working on these things regardless of how other issues are being looked into, and I think that's important to keep in mind. So thanks for watching today, guys. Hope you enjoyed. Drop it a little like if you did. Much more coming up this week. My voice continues to be a problem, but I'm struggling through nonetheless. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.